What is up, everyone? Welcome to another Canadian, or no, not Canadian, Austrian Grand Prix Q&A stream on a Thursday night, a little bit different than usual. It's Thursday. Yesterday was Wednesday. Tomorrow is Friday with free practice. So, yeah, it's almost time. I'm pretty excited. Let me know if you can hear and see me, trying to make sure that the mic is not all that crazy. I guess I got a bad shadow here on my face, but I'm wearing the Haas hat. Cash Conovan, I saw you. I was checking the F1 Fantasy pole position mini league, and I saw that you were all the way up there. So I went to the global league, and I was like, oh my god, you're all the way up there. So great job by you, Cash Conovan. Let me know where you are watching from in the world. Let's see if I have been to where you are located in the world. That is always a little bit of a fun game to see what is going on. But yeah, we are here. We are for the next hour. Actually, so for the next 50-ish minutes, we're going to talk F1 fantasy. And then the last 10 minutes of the hour, I'm going to talk about F1 the movie. Probably do like 5 minutes non-spoilery review. And then 5 minutes of like kind of spoilery review. Cash Conovan is from Austin, Texas. My little brother lives there, so I've definitely been there. I was just there like last month. Is that right? Like 6 weeks ago. 6 or 7 weeks ago, I was there. Yeah. I mean, I am going to try and save like the full review, but I was entertained. That's what I would say, Uncle Papa Lee. Nicholas Pedersen from Denmark, what is up in the chat? I have been there. I've only been to Copenhagen, so I won't say that. I've never actually, I maybe went to Legoland when I was a kid. I can't remember if my parents took me there. I went to a Legoland from Washington, D.C. I've somehow never been to Washington, D.C. The East Coast was not somewhere that I frequented all that often, but yes, hope everyone is doing well. Thank you for tuning in on a Thursday. It's a little bit different. Usually I do Wednesday, but I was at F1 the movie last night watching it for the first time. Kansas City. I have flown into that airport. Malek, thank you for sharing. But here's the squad right here. Oscar Piastri, Liam Lawson, Frank Colapinto, Nico Hulkenberg, and Isaac Hadjar. And there was going to be some changes to the squad this week. I've got 3 free transfers. I don't know if you can see that there. And there are some things. I don't know if you guys follow me on X at F1 Fantasy Ewan. I would highly suggest you do that because that is where I post stuff that comes into my brain and doesn't have much of a filter when it comes to my F1 Fantasy reactions. Usually here it's a little bit more thought out, you know. I like to make it look a little professional on the old YouTubes and whatnot. But yeah, F1 Fantasy, I'm just a severe lack of filter as well. Uncle Papa Lee is asking, you going to be tuning into Club World Cup? You know, once we get to these knockout rounds that are coming up, I'm probably going to be tuning in. I think it's PSG versus Inter Miami. So once we get like some bigger teams, but I haven't really been following it. I'm in Germany, so it hasn't been super in my time zone. There's been a couple of games. I think like Bayern Munich played at like 11 o'clock East Coast time one day. But yeah, I'm with the F1 Fantasy season entering like a kind of critical point. I'm taking a little bit of a break from football, soccer, whatever we're calling it in your part of the world. But yeah, so as an example of why you should follow me on F1 Fantasy or at F1 Fantasy UN on X, this is what I had today. I don't know if you guys have been following, but I was writing my F1 Fantasy preview for rotoballer.com, so make sure you go check that out. And I was like, I'm thinking about bringing in Max Verstappen this week. And I was like, how can I get there without breaking up the entire structure of my team? So I put together this little thread of a little bit of a differential strategy for Austria. So I said, I haven't thought this all the way through, so someone please correct me if this is all nonsense, but I'm thinking about attacking Austria differently this weekend. This is how the squad is lined up after Canada. Lawson and Colapinto to Alonso and Ocon are my likely moves. It's very safe and smart and will probably get me a lot of budget, blah, blah, blah. However, what if there is a different way to strategize for Spielberg? I could use all three of my transfers and line up like this heading into the Austrian Grand Prix deadline. So what I would do here is I'd keep Piastri, Hulkenberg, and Hadjar. I would bring out Lawson and Colapinto and Ferrari. I'd bring in Alonso, Gasly, and Kick Sauber for my team. This would leave me 24.6 million. So this squad, as I say here, it gives me a chance for a 3.6 million rise in budget. Piastri 0.3, McLaren 0.3, Alonso, Gasly, Hulkenberg, Hadjar, and Kick Sauber, all quite likely to rise 0.6 million. We can go over here to the F1 Fantasy Tools budget builder and look at all this. Hulkenberg, Alonso, very, very set to rise. Gasly needs 5 points for a max price rise. Bortoletto, Hadjar, 8 points for a price rise. We go down here, Kick Sauber, we would need double DSQs in qualifying and the race to not get a 0.6 million rise. So that's a really nice area. If I hit that 3.6 million budget rise, I would go from 114.5 million in my cost cap to, really bad at math, 118.1. Hopefully that's right. But Ewan, I hear you cry. Don't you want to score some points? Yes, I most certainly do. The 24.6 million left in my cost cap allows me to use my final fix chip and move any of those tier B assets to Max Verstappen, the undisputed king of the Red Bull ring. It gives me budget building ability of the tier B driver, but the point safety of Verstappen in an updated Red Bull set up to dominate in Austria. He's in 0.6 of the global top 500 and could significantly boost my rank. So that would be me using the final fix chip and bringing in Verstappen for Gasly or Hulkenberg or Hadjar or Alonso or whoever I think is not going to score the most amount of points on Sunday. Because when you use that final fix chip, you get the points of the driver you're bringing in, but you keep the budget gains of the driver you transfer out, and then they come back into your squad for the next race. The downside to this strategy is what I note here, is that it burns my final fix chip. However, with the top 6 to 7 drivers looking so dominant, I'm not sure if we'll have the chance to utilize it as we hope in 2025. Another downside is that I wouldn't be maximizing Verstappen's differential potential unless I use the DRS boost on him. So that is the problem, because if I have Piastri as my 2x, right, I'd have to bring in Verstappen for Piastri, Verstappen for Piastri to get the 2x on him. I'd have to put the 2x on like Pierre Gasly to bring in Verstappen to get the differential of the 2x DRS boost. The differential of bringing in Verstappen may be enough, but that means selecting a tier B driver as my DRS boost and committing to him as the one I transfer out for Verstappen on Sunday. That would give me less flexibility than I would like if I were to go down this road. So then I asked you guys at the end, so what do y'all think? Am I just bored or coming up with a wild strategy for Austria, or is this something you would consider for F1 Fantasy? Good idea, I'll consider it, is leading right now, 46.5%. Good idea, but won't do it, is at 39.6%. And bad idea, touch grass please, is at 13.9%. 101 votes. So yeah, give me a follow on X. And that's the kind of stuff that will be coming at your Twitter feed. All right, let's see. Let's see what you're all thinking. Urasoto. If I already have Alonso and Hulkenberg, could an Aston and Verstappen build be viable with Piastri? I haven't looked at Aston. Man, I don't know. I think I'm only going to be touching Fernando Alonso from Aston Martin right now. So not super keen on that Aston. Nicholas, they're going to sell Liam Lawson this week, while angrily yelling, "Get out!" like Gordon Ramsay would on Hell's Kitchen when the contestants mess up. Yeah, like, what are you? I'm an idiot sandwich. Yeah, that's probably what it is when we are bringing in Liam Lawson again. I might feel that way if I continue to bring in Pierre Gasly, the ultimate F1 fantasy troll, despite him only needing 5 points to get a 0.6 price rise. Cash is in here as well. What race do you think you can actually go double premium at? I'm not really counting Kimi, so I'm not sure how fast I can realistically get to McLaren plus Ferrari / Mercedes and Oscar plus one of the 5. That's a great point, Cash. It kind of depends on how these Mercedes upgrades are going. I think they did something to the suspension in Canada. It seemed to help out. It seemed to help with the tire temperature. They weren't as affected by the heat. If they can get through this weekend, which is going to be like 28, 29, 30, 31 degrees Celsius in Spielberg on Sunday, and Mercedes is still like battling for podium, maybe George Russell is trying to mop up a second place or something like that, that's something that's really interesting to me. And Mercedes might be an option moving forward, which means you could maybe get to like a mini premium, which is kind of a weird way of saying it. But Mercedes here, I'm trying to see how low would I have to go and how close would I come to being in Kimi Antonelli range if that happens. So I'd be at 17.6 million, right? Kimi Antonelli is at 18.3. He's probably about to go down. If he is, I believe he's going to be classed as a tier B driver and he's going to suffer tier B drops, right? So he's going to fall 0.2 and 0.6. He's going to rise 0.2 and 0.6 until he goes back above that 18.5 million threshold. That's just my opinion. We actually do not know how it's going to work. We're going to find out whatever the scores finalize on Sunday afternoon after the Austrian Grand Prix. So Antonelli this weekend needs at least 10 points to avoid a full 0.6 million price drop. I don't think he's going to fall that far. I think he's going to get over 10 points. 27 points, now we're kind of talking. He could suffer a 0.2 million price drop. So he'd go down to 18.1. That would leave me 0.5 million short. If I'm thinking about getting all these budget gains, Liam Lawson's going to go down. I expect Bordello, Colapinto to be about in the same area. But if I can get down to these assets, or say, I don't know, Liam Lawson is likely the only one dropping. Like Behrman could drop, but that's not going to really help me. So really what I need is Liam Lawson to continue dropping. Bortoleto and Colapinto have a not so good weekend, and I can get to this mini premium setup where you could go double McLaren, double Mercedes, and just ride that for as long as possible and try to switch out your tier A driver or your tier B driver. So yeah, I guess that's where I'm at, Cash. I guess I could be doing that by Silverstone. So that's not a bad shout at all. So thank you for kind of bringing that to my attention. Not bad at all. Karen says, I am thinking of going for the same lineup to get 3.6, but only have 2 transfers. Should I use my wildcard to get that or take a negative 10? So if you have a similar budget to me, Karen, I actually didn't note this. I thought I did, but I actually don't even need to use my other transfer to bring in Pierre Gasly. I could just keep Colapinto. I really want Alonso because he's really obvious to rise 0.6 million. But Colapinto needs more than 0 points to, I mean, he can only go down 0.2, so he needs 5 points to avoid a drop, right? I'm not entirely sure he's going to get there. I really am not sold on Franco Colapinto at F1 Fantasy, despite having him in my squad. But I could just get to that kind of lineup over here. If we just took out Gasly and put in Colapinto, that would actually still get me there with 2 free transfers. And I haven't actually looked at this, but I don't know how short of Lando Norris I would be. 35.4 million. So yeah, I mean, if you give me, the thing is I need Hulkenberg. Hold on. I need Isaac and Hulkenberg. 26.3 million. I would have exactly enough money to get to Lando Norris from Franco Colapinto, which is just another, I don't know, because I don't have Bortoleto. What am I doing? Sorry. No, I would go down to Bortoleto. No, because right now I have Liam Lawson. Hold on. Let's refresh this page. My team is all out of sync. Okay, here we go. Liam Lawson, Hulkenberg, Hajar, Colapinto. and Hulkenberg. So I could bring out Ferrari and Liam Lawson, bring in Alonso and Kick Sauber. That would leave me 25.7 million. I'd be 0.6 short of Lando with Oscar Piastri. So I would have to use him. I'd have to use the final fix on Hulkenberg or Hadjar in F1 Fantasy to get up to Lando, because I don't think I still wouldn't have enough here to go. Yeah, I'd be 0.2 short with Fernando Alonso as well. So that would be, yeah. But Lando is tempting as well. I expect McLaren to be really, really good around here. So I think I wouldn't use the wild card for -10. I think when we're getting into -20 range, that's where I would go. Urasoto says, I like the thread. Would it be worth losing the third free transfer? Yeah, I just went over that, Urasoto. Yeah, so great question. But yeah, that's where I'm at. So I could get there in 2 free transfers, which is kind of nice. William is in the chat. What is up, William? How are you doing, sir? If you're the same William that I've been talking to on X, then you're a Liverpool fan, and we are having a hunky-dory of a transfer window right now, sir. Kirkez in the bag. Florian Wirtz, ever heard of him? Yeah. Kai the guy. My main dilemma this week is Ferrari versus Mercedes. Definitely a post-FP discussion, but are you leaning one way or the other currently? I mean, the arrow is pointing up on Mercedes. That is for sure. The vibes are good. Double podium. It seems like the updates they brought to Canada are doing all right. I haven't watched the F1 Unchained upgrades video yet. That is on my list of things to do before the deadline stream. But speaking of the deadline stream, Kai the guy, and the 26 people that are watching right now and a couple of likes. So if we could get that like counter a little bit up, help me out. We can spread the word, let people know that there are some of us on here watching. Watching myself, I guess. I don't know. But yes, if you can hit that like button, I would greatly appreciate it to let people know what is up. But speaking of deadline stream, Saturday, I have been a little bit absent in my deadline streamingness. I'm trying to think the last one that I did. Maybe I was here for Spain. Spain, I did like a post FP3 one. But I am going to be here for 3.5 hours starting after FP3 on Saturday. Not 1, not 2, not even 3. 3.5 straight hours of F1 fantasy content. We're going to go right through the deadline into quali, and we're going to watch that, break it all down, F1 fantasy style. Going to react around the Red Bull ring, like just over a minute long, 10 corners, fewest corners on the F1 calendar. It's like the 4th shortest as well, or 4th shortest circuit on the calendar as well. So 7:30 a.m. US Eastern, 12:30 p.m. UK, 1:30 p.m. local time. I will start my 3.5 hour marathon of F1 fantasy. So hopefully you guys and ladies and gentlemen, yeah, I should just go with that, will join me there. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a little bit of a marathon. Probably going to have a few Gatorades, some granola bars on standby. But yeah, that's where we're at. Anthony Stafford. I'm at Piastri, Russell, McLaren, Mercedes for this race. Oh, so jealous. So jealous of you, Anthony. What does the rest of the squad look like? Is that going to be filled with Bortoleto, Lawson, Colapinto? Because that is mighty nice. Uncle Papa Lee says, I'm wondering what I should do with my 109 million budget. Have 3 free transfers, McLaren, Ferrari. Where'd you go? Where'd we go? McLaren, Ferrari, Piastri, Alonso, Hadjar, Lawson, Bortoleto. Can't afford Hulk. Should I take out Ferrari for kick to build budget? Whew. You've got Alonso. You've got Hadjar. Damn, you don't have the 0.3 to go from Lawson to... Man, that is... Oh, wait, no. Yeah, you need a lot more. You need to get to Hulkenberg is what you're saying. I would maybe just... Oh, you already have 3 free transfers as well. That could be a kind of area where you can go Ferrari to Mercedes and Lawson up to Hulkenberg and be like pretty templatey, but it could also pay off huge and you can just roll another transfer. William is talking to Uncle Papa Lee. William is saying that yes, he is a Liverpool fan. I could get that budget increase in my budget with Kick than I could with Merrick. Yes, but Merrick is likely to score quite a lot of points. So I'm not sure if this is a stage where I just build the budget, even though I know I won't get as many points. We're getting to that point in the season where we will need to start picking up points and hoping that we can navigate scoring points while building budget, but it's not going to be super easy. We need to be very careful to not prioritize one way or the other too much. I just did a whole thread about trying to get 3.6 million in budget and go like for the max gain almost, but that would involve bringing in Max Verstappen to like help out in the point scoring department, potentially get a little bit of a differential, and just kind of do the best of both worlds. I'm not entirely sure if it is the best use of the final fix chip, but it's also, I also think the final fix chip is a tiny bit overrated, and we maybe like talk ourselves in circles for it, and like we're always waiting for the perfect opportunity where like, I mean, like this weekend, like Lando qualifies P18 or something like that, and we can all of a sudden bring him in for final fix and get a bunch of overtakes. He could probably still get on the podium, driver of the day, fastest lap, all that fun stuff. But is that actually going to come about this season? I'm not entirely sure. So it feels like it could be a good weekend to kind of go there, but I'm going to see what happens in free practice 1 and free practice 2. Let's see. What do we got here? All right. Sorry, I was just tweeting out that we are live because we're 22 minutes in and I forgot to remind everyone. Cash Conovan says, would you only final fix to Verstappen if he's on pole? I'm not sure the points make sense if he's not on pole. If you don't final fix to him, you're way behind on points. This could put you in a bad spot. It definitely could, and more than likely will, Cash. So that's a great point. But sometimes you got to risk it for the biscuit. So I'm not set in stone on this strategy. It's just like, it's something that popped into my head literally at 5:30 in the morning while I was writing my F1 fantasy preview for rotoballer.com, which right above my head right now, read my F1 fantasy articles on rotoballer.com. Yeah, we're doing F1 fantasy content this season, so go check that out. And I was like, it's kind of interesting. Let me put it out to the masses. And 100% or 100 votes, and where are we at? 100 votes, 102 votes, and over 75% of y'all, 85% of y'all have said that it's a good idea. Does that mean it's an idea that we should maybe go after? I'm not so sure, but it is what it is. So I just wanted to put it out there. So it's just in my thoughts a little bit. Nicholas says, pre-free practice thoughts on Sainz versus Ocon versus Gasly versus Hadjar to fill the last 2 driver spots. Rest of the team, Piastri, Hulk, Alonso, and McLaren, Ferrari, 117.2 million in the bank, or 17.2 million in the bank, and 3 free transfers. Okay, so I have been talking about this as well. I think I talked about it on the transfer targets episode. So if you haven't watched that, Nicholas, go check that out. Give that a like as well while you're over there. But for me, if I go the plain Jane route, is what I called it in Canada, my transfers this week are quite boring. And I'm kind of getting tired of being boring. Maybe that's where this whole final fix strategy came from. But patience is a virtue. So I could go with Gasly and Alonso, and that leaves me 2.4 million in the bank. That's kind of easy. But I can also get up to this area that you're just talking about right here, Nicholas, the Carlos Sainz and the Esteban Ocon range. Except I actually can't because I'm 0.1 million short of Carlos Sainz. So I am in Team Esteban Ocon camp because I am 0.1 million short of Carlos Sainz. However, If we go over to the budget builder, you can see that Carlos Sainz does need less points to go up 0.2 or 0.6 million in budget this week. He needs 3 points for a 0.2 million rise, 10 points for a 0.6 million rise. Ocon is at 8 and 15 respectively to get to those thresholds. However, Haas do have 2 double points finishes at the Red Bull Ring in the last 3 seasons. They seem to turn up here and have a pretty good time. So that also makes me feel okay about bringing in Ocon. I think he can definitely get to the 8 points. I trust him more than Pierre Gasly, Alpine just in general, and Gasly just being the ultimate F1 fantasy troll. However, if I had unlimited budget, I could bring in whoever I want, I would probably go with Sainz. The lower threshold, Williams should be pretty strong around here. 3 really long straights, like kind of a power track. Williams should do quite well here. But I think I'm leaning to Ocon, but like I said, if I'm being objective about this, it'll be Sainz over Ocon for me. Hadjar versus Gasly. Hadjar has only let me down in 1 race this season, and that was the very first race that he did not even race at technically because he did not start. So I'm going to stick with Hadjar, despite him 2 points and 8 points for a good and a great price rise compared to Gasly. Gasly has broken my heart too many times this season. Let's just go look it up. Let's look at the tape here, guys. Let's go to the tape. Gasly here. Who remembers Saudi Arabia? Where are you, Pierre? Boom, boom, boom. Headed into Saudi Arabia. Needs what? 3 points for a price rise, 7 points for a great price rise. Yeah, he's going to get that. Who's going to get that? Boom. DNF. Turn 2. Like, absolutely brutal. I yelped at my TV when that happened. My wife thought something was wrong, and then she saw that I was watching the race, and she knew something was wrong, and then just shaking her head in disappointment. Then, okay, 18 points in Miami, 3 points in Imola. We're back on. This negative 17 is going to drop off, and Pierre Gasly is on for another price rise. Boom! Another DNF in Monaco. And look at us now. Look at us now. Okay. 10 points. 10 points in Spain. 6 points in Canada. We know how this story is going to go. And we're just walking on in, thinking we're going to pick up a 0.6 price rise. Hunky-dory. And we all know how this is going to end. It's going to end with me here on the Cool Down Room episode, which you can check out 1 hour after every Grand Prix. So join me there. It's like a little race review, it's turning into more of a therapy session. And I'm going to be like, what am I doing? Why do I trust Pierre Gasly? All he does is hurt me, and I keep going back to him. So I'm going to do my best to not go back into the Pierre Gasly trap, I think, despite how tempting the 0 and the 5 is. Please look bad, Alpine. Please look bad. If you look good, I will not be able to resist the siren call of Pierre Gasly into my F1 fantasy team once again. I am not ready for this. But great question, Nicholas. So for me, it would be Sainz over Ocon and Hadjar over Gasly. I'd kind of just compare them to, if I had to compare all 4, I would go Sainz, Ocon, Hadjar, Gasly for me. William, but Hulk should give you 0.6 rise as well in addition to points. I agree with that. Anthony Stafford, Bortoletto, Colapinto, Alonso could swap Colapinto for Gasly for Colapinto, but that takes -10, raised to a -20 on 120.3 total. Yeah, I would try to avoid a -20, Anthony, but that budget is awesome. What constructors do you think are the best short term? The Papaya. They're pretty strong. And I do like Kick Sauber, just rising 0.6 all the time. That's pretty nice. But in terms of like point scoring, the arrow is pointing up on Mercedes. They do have a pretty strong history at this track. Ferrari, we don't know what they're bringing. I haven't watched the F1 Unchained video yet, so I'm not entirely sure what upgrades they've brought or not bringing. I think I saw another report saying that their new suspension that's supposed to alter their ride height is being delayed to Silverstone, but I'm not sure what they've brought here yet. I haven't been able to get into the technical riffraff of what's going on this weekend in Austria yet. So I think I would probably roll with McLaren and Mercedes right now, and then like kick Sauber as like a little budget building differential. William says, still need to build budget right now, I think. Yeah, I'm still leaning that way as well, William. Uncle Papa Lee says, thanks for the help in chat. Of course, anytime. Chris is in the chat. What is up, Chris? I'm looking to limitless in Spa, but what assets should I consider to transfer in for Silverstone to maximize the budget gain? Well, the thing that I believe will help you the most, Chris, is if you can roll a transfer into Silverstone, so you can have 3 free transfers for the British Grand Prix. That is going to be a lot of help. I think right now, it's hard to say because you're kind of asking me to forecast, 3 races into the future now? 2 races. Well, yeah, 3. 3 races into the future. I think Alonso and Hulkenberg are still going to be okay. In fact, if we go over to the excellent Pat F1 and his F1 Fantasy Insights calculator, let's just load up a little Fernando Alonso love here, shall we? So right now, he needs negative 17 points for a great price rise. Let's say he's not going to get that. Let's take the average here, 14 and 22, 36. Let's say he scores 18 points in Austria. 18 points in Austria means that he needs negative 19 in Great Britain. If he scores 0 points in Great Britain, that means he needs 5 points for a great price rise in Spa. I'm assuming that means if I put 9 here and 9 here, that's the same thing. Yeah. So if he averages 9 points over these next 2 weeks, Fernando Alonso, great asset in F1 Fantasy. Nico Hulkenberg, we could be getting a little bit more interesting because that 32 points is going to fall off in Austria. So if we go here, let's say Hulkenberg scores a modest 8 points in Austria, right? Seems like that could work. That means in the UK at the British Grand Prix, he'll need 6 points for a great price rise. Let's say he gets that. Or let's say he scores 8 points again. Now he needs 15 points in Spa. It is a sprint weekend, though. Points will be higher. You can sometimes overtake at Spa. However, last year, we thought Verstappen and his mini rocket ship of the Red Bull would be able to fly through the field with the engine penalty, and it did not work out that way. So Hulkenberg is maybe a little bit riskier than Fernando Alonso for that long-term strategy. But those are probably your 2 best bets right now. I'm trying to think. So Lawson's on his negative 20. What you want to look at here, right, is like, so Lawson, next week, he's going to have this negative 20 move over here. And when we head into Belgium, he will likely rise because that negative 20 is going to fall off his 3-race rolling average and should be in a strong spot. What you don't want is these people right here. This Hulkenberg 32, it's going to fall off the next Grand Prix, right? So it's going to be harder for him to rise in budget. He's going to be 7.6 or 7.8 next weekend. And it gets harder and harder to kind of keep your average up when you go higher and higher in price. Antonelli could be a good bet if he has another strong performance. Like if he gets another 35 points, or not 35. Let's go. Let's do this. Let's utilize Pat's excellent tool. Let's say Antonelli scores a modest 20 points this weekend, right? He's going to fall this weekend, but now he needs 11 points to get a great price rise in the UK. Let's say he does better than that. Let's say he, in front of the home crowd, his home team crowd, gets another 18 points there. Now he needs 30 at a sprint weekend in Spa. Don't hate it. That's a lot of maneuvering around, but this excellent tool is linked in the description below. So check this out. Go through the kind of scenarios, what you think, what you don't think, what's likely to happen, what you want to happen. And yeah, go with that. William says, so we are going with Gasly. Oh my God. Don't make me do it, William. Don't make me. Karan says, what do you think of taking a -10 to get to Piastri, Russell, Hulkenberg, Alonso, Hadjar with McLaren kick? Potential for 2.9 million increase. I don't hate it. But I don't... it's good for budget game, Karan. Yeah. Steiner says 92.4 million in budget. Cooked? Potentially cooked there, Steiner. Yeah, that is really unfortunate. Have you been scoring a ton of points though, at least? Like, I'd love to see what the lowest budget inside the global top 100 is. F1 Fantasy Tools have probably already come out with a way to look at that, but I am not smart enough to find it on their website. But you keep doing what you're doing. There is a poll going on. I forgot to mention this. Are you planning to watch the F1 movie? 85% of y'all say yes. 15% of you say you are not going to watch the movie. Merc over Ferrari? Based on very recent momentum, Ollie, yes. That, like, right now, the arrow is kind of pointing up a little bit for Mercedes. If you guys are watching and you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel, do me a favor. We are almost at 3,300 subscribers. I would love you to join me before we get to the 3,300 club, because you know what they say, the first 3,300 are the most important 3,300 of your YouTube career. So I want that to be y'all. I want you guys to be one of those most important first 3,300. So I'd really appreciate if you guys can help me out get over the 3,300 mark by the end of the Austrian Grand Prix. Lannister, is Kimi moving to B class or stays at A? So right now, Kimi started the season at 18.4. When we can go over here. Where are you? Kimi Antonelli. Here we go. All right. Australia. It actually doesn't give you a starting price, but I can go over here and I can get you guys to trust me that he did start at 18.4. All right. At the start of the season, Kimi Antonelli was 18.4. In Australia, he scored 32 points, finishing 4th in his F1 debut, right? He went up 0.6 million because he was a tier B driver, and he was getting the price gains and losses at a tier B rate. Then we all thought that he was still a tier B driver because we thought the cutoff was at 20 million, and he only went up 0.3. So we knew that the cutoff was at least at 19. So we adjusted our cost, right? Then we thought the cutoff was at 19 this whole time. And then a couple of races ago in Spain, he went down 0.3. You go down here to the Spanish Grand Prix, had a DNF, negative 12 points, went down 0.3. He's still gone down 0.3. He's now 18.3. So he's now below his starting price of the season. And Lannister, you're making a great point right here. He said, I asked because I heard that once you are A, you remain A. I have seen people floating that theory out here as well. I'm choosing to not believe it because honestly, it doesn't make a single lick of sense to me. Why you'd be an A tier driver and then you'd fall below the cutoff and not become a tier B driver. Because that would imply that, like, if you start as a tier B driver, then you shouldn't go up to being a tier A driver. I don't understand what the gaming mechanics or whatever would be. Maybe I just haven't heard a good argument on the other side. Because of, like, why they would do that and not do it. Like, last year, I did it a couple of times where, like, Lance Stroll would drop back down into the tier C pod, and then I'd bring him in for a cheap 0.5, 1 million price gain, and he'd go back up, and then he'd be a tier B, and he would be it just doesn't make sense to me that he would remain an A tier asset when he's below the A tier threshold. But this game does do some crazier, that does do some crazy stuff. So that's where we're at with that. So I guess that's my mini soapboxy rant about why Kimi Antonelli should be a tier A driver. Boy Savage says, if Merc shows out in quali, I'm hitting wild card. Need to get Merc, Alonso, Sainz, Gasly, Piastri instead of Ferrari, Bottas, Hadjar, Norris. Thoughts? I like that. Yeah, that could be. I saw Fantasy Formula Hub. Rob was talking about maybe using the wild card this week as well. I think he said he would like to keep his powder dry and just use his 2 free transfers. But he does realize that using this, getting Norris in for Canada has left him in a little bit of a pickle, and that he might have to activate the wild card. So I don't think that's a bad idea when someone like Rob, who's one of the best F1 fantasy managers out there, says something like that. You got to take notice. I blew my wild card in the second race of the season, so I'm not the one to talk to about what I would do on the wild card, but that seems like you do have a team that would be worthy of a wild card there, Boy Savage. So I think that's a great idea. Dom says, was just going to transfer Lawson out for Gasly, but now I can't stop thinking about your max final fix strategy. I know. Like, once I thought of it, I was kind of like, I'm either a giant idiot or a little bit smart. There's no in between. There's no above line. There's no below line. It's either a giant idiot or a little bit smart. Looks like we don't know for sure. Or cannot just ask a support team. I could ask the support team if the sky is blue, and I'm not entirely sure what they would answer me, Lannister. So great call by you. DesX101, what is up? I think I've seen you in the chat for a while, but so glad to see you back here. I'm in Austria now, raining. Ooh, raining now. Okay, yes, I think I did see it was supposed to be thunderstorms this afternoon, but the weather forecast wasn't that bad. Let's go to AccuWeather. AccuWeather, Spielberg in Styria, Austria. Couple of evening thunderstorms, otherwise partly cloudy. Let's get to Friday, shall we? Goodness gracious. Pop-up ads are terrifying these days. I got an American Express one there, but there might just be something very, very random on here. This is actually quite terrifying. Afternoon, mostly cloudy with a brief shower or two, 55% chance of precipitation. So there is that. And then we go over to Saturday. Once again, terrified of what the pop-up ads will be. 29 degrees Celsius with a 2% chance of precipitation. Oh, it's kind of cut off on the left there, my bad. And then finally, 31, mostly sunny and warm. 1% chance of precipitation. So that's where we're at there. But yeah, for now, I guess it is raining. Oh wait, what did I say? There was hail earlier. Uncle Papa Lee says some teams posted it on their social media. Fraser is in the chat. Good day, sir. What is up, Fraser? Ethan is in here as well. Piastri, Sainz, Hadjar, Hulkenberg, Alonso. Any moves that I should do or just roll for Silverstone? Just absolute bravo, sir. There are no notes for that team. How you have that team right now, I'm very jealous. Yeah, it might be a boring weekend for you of doing absolutely nothing. Audrey says, can you repeat the final fix strategy? Just tuned in. Yes, you can watch the full breakdown. Or the full break. Watch the full breakdown. You can follow me on X at F1 Fantasy Unit, and I have a Twitter thread going, but I'll just do it here real quick for you, Audrey. So if I go with this final fix, right, let me refresh the team here. So right now I got Piastri, Lawson, Colapinto, Hulkenberg, Hadjar. I have 3 free transfers. I can get to the strategy with 2 or free transfers, but the 3 free transfers does set me up a little bit better for the ultimate budget gain. So essentially what I do is I bring out Lawson, I bring out Colapinto, I bring out Ferrari. Then I would bring in Fernando Alonso for his fairly obvious 0.6 price rise, and I could also bring in Pierre Gasly. That would give me, and finally, Kick Sauber. This would give me a potential base of rising 3.6 million in budget, which would be huge. Piastri 0.3, McLaren 0.3, 0.6, 0.6, 0.6, potentially 0.6, potentially 0.6. 3.6 million or 3 million in budget seems pretty tasty to me. But this lineup is not scoring a lot of points, right? So what I could do is set this team up, lock it in for the deadline, and transfer out any of these tier B assets for one Max Verstappen. So that's where I'd be at. And then I'd have Verstappen going into Sunday at a track he dominates. He's got 5 wins and 8 podiums here in 12 starts, 10 Austrian Grand Prix, 2 Styrian Grand Prix. He loves it here. It's a home track for Red Bull. Red Bull has become super strong here at this like kind of power circuit with the long straights and stuff like that. They've got some updates coming, I believe, but like I said, I haven't checked the F1 Unchained video yet and like the official documentation and all that stuff. So it's but this could be my Sunday strategy, and then I keep Pierre Gasly and hopefully get his 0.6 price rise with more points from Max Verstappen, or if he trolls us, like Pierre Gasly tends to do in F1 Fantasy this season, I don't get the bad points. I still get the negative 0.6 price drop. It is what it is, but I'd have that anyway with Pierre Gasly in my team. But now I have Max Verstappen, who could potentially go on to win the race, 25 points, driver of the day, fastest lap bonus. I'm looking at a huge swing. Could get a bunch of bonus, a bunch of points, and that's where my head's at. I'm not entirely sure I'm going to go with this strategy, but it's a strategy that I thought up at like 5:30 this morning, and it's been stuck in my head all day. So I'm kind of touting it quite a little bit. Geez, I honestly like it. Thank you, Audrey. Appreciate that. Fraser says, tempted to stick with triple Mac build and V-carb as no obvious second A-class. Constructors, 120.7 million. Yeah, that's why Kick Sauber is kind of catching my eye right now. They're a very, very obvious budget riser right now. And they're not doing too shabby. I think it was like over the last 5 races. Let's go here. Let's bring out all these races here. Miami, Imola, Monaco, Spain, Canada. If we go down here. Oh, that's not right. I did the price. I didn't do fantasy points. There we go. Kick Sauber, the 5th best constructor out there. Yes, I know the 52 points, but they're actually doing really well in the pit stop points as well. If you just want to look at like how fundamentally sound a team is, we can just go look at the pit stop points here. Fastest pit stop, overall fastest pit stop. Save. Look at this. They're second to Ferrari over the last 5 races. 10, 5, 5, 15, 5. Really, really, really not bad. Like, I really like it. I really like Kick Sauber this week, and that is not a sentence I thought I'd be saying in F1 Fantasy 2025. What do we got? Dezak says, I'm thinking on full budget build with McLaren, Haas, Piastri, Alonso, Sainz, or Ocon, Hadjar, Russell, Hulk. Thoughts? Ocon worked on steering for an hour today. Haas might cook this week. Yes. Haas is in the kitchen, and they are cooking up a storm because they do quite well at the Red Bull Ring. 2 double points finishes in the last 3 seasons. So yeah, I can't say that Esteban Ocon hasn't caught my eye a little bit this week. So I don't mind that at all, DesX. Audrey says, you could do that with other pilots. Let's say Norris gets the pole or Russell. You have the budget to do that with anyone. I honestly might consider it too because I'm in your exact same position. Yeah, I really like it. Nicholas says, Ewan, if you're nervous about Gasly for the max final fix plan, why not use Bortoletto since him doing well gives Kick Constructor more points and 4 should be doable. Austria is a high overtake track. Great call, Nicholas. I really, really like that, actually. So yeah, I would just, instead of Gasly, I'd bring in Gabby Bortz. Yeah, not bad at all. And then, because then it gets more interesting, because then I could get out Alonso or Hadjar for Norris. And that would maybe give me a little bit more flexibility. But like I said, this strategy is gaining momentum. Hop on board. Maybe we can all dive in together. But in 1 minute, I'm not trying to get rid of people. But in 1 minute, I am gonna start talking about F1 the movie. I'm gonna do like 5 minutes of non-spoilery review, and then the last 5 minutes of the episode will be kinda spoilery. So, yeah. If you guys don't wanna hear anything about the F1 fantasy movie, I really appreciate you guys tuning in, but I would get oh, wait, hold on. Before we get there, Riley says, "Watch the Unchained upgrades video. Something confirmed for this race as for sure confirmed upgrades before the UK, but unsure exactly what it is. He expects a floor upgrade or maybe rear suspension." Thank you very much, Riley. Much appreciated. But yes, I'm just letting you guys know right now that I am going to start talking about F1 Fantasy or F1 F1 Fantasy the movie. No, F1 the movie. I'm going to start talking about it in a non-spoilery way right now. So if you listen to podcast side, if you're watching the YouTube video and you don't want to, I'm going to start talking about it right now. All right. So I went yesterday, had my McLaren shirt on. Wife called me a little bit of a nerd. She was laughing at me a little bit. She's like, "You got your shirt on?" And I was like, "I do." So, yeah, but there was tons of us. There are dozens of us, dozens. Yeah, we were all watching it. The theater was like sold out. So it's out 2 days earlier here in Germany than it is in the old USA, which I guess will probably be out tonight, Thursday or whatever. And yeah, the start was good. Enjoyed the whole like Brad Pitt's he's a kind of tough and gritty driver kind of thing, and going about his business, and he doesn't care. I'm just here to race, that kind of attitude. And you like him, you kind of see it all, and they get to he gets his shot. He does the whole like audition thing where he goes up against the hot young shot, but overall, I was really, really entertained. But there are some misses. I'm not an F1 technical nerd. I'm really not. I love watching F1. I love F1 fantasy. I'm an F1 fantasy technical nerd. I could talk to you about that all day long. But when it comes to F1, I'm not super into like the tire pressure, the angles of the rear wing, like what a low downforce wing is versus a high downforce wing. Like that's one of the weaknesses in my F1 fandom. Even I noticed that. I was like, that's wrong. That's wrong. And I'm like a really big go to the movies, get lost in it, enjoy the whole experience, blah, blah, blah. But even me, as more knowledgeable than like my wife, but not more knowledgeable than a lot of other people, I was like, that's not going to work. That shouldn't work at all. So hopefully you guys, I guess my thing would be go in with the expectations that it is a Hollywood movie. It is not a documentary. This is not going to be a shot-for-shot remake of some epic Senna versus Prost battle and tell us exactly what the tire pressure was or the wind angle or how much they weighed. It's not going to be like that. Go in expecting a Hollywood version of F1 the movie, and you will not be disappointed. You'll be very, very entertained. And I was super entertained. Most of the time, it was probably about 30 minutes too long. Tons of stuff that they could cut. It was fun seeing the drivers on the big screen. None of the drivers have a line. Like, absolutely not. I think the only time a driver is actually mentioned is when some woman at a Vegas club asks one of the actors if they can get Carlos Sainz to meet them or whatever. So that was kind of weird. The team principals all have a line. Fred Vasseur has a line. Zach Brown has a line. Toto Wolff has a line. James Vowles says hi. Gunther Steiner is in it. He makes a couple of cameos. There's a lot of K-Mag talk as well. Like K-Mag is kind of probably the most prominent. Crofty's in it. Brundle's in it. Will Buxton's in it. Yeah, Buxton gets a lot of screen time, actually. I mean, more so than any other side character, more than Crofty, more than Brundle. So he must be loving life at IndyCar with that Fox deal, and also getting a pretty big screen time in F1 the movie. But yes, like I said, I really enjoyed it. I went in knowing that it was going to be a movie for Hollywood fans over F1 fans, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. There is some ludicrous stuff in there. It doesn't pass the Bechtel test, which is a little disappointing. And then, like for those of you that don't know, I'm probably saying it wrong, but the Bechtel test is when like two women are talking to each other on screen, and that does not happen in this movie. And I was pretty surprised that that happened because Lewis Hamilton is a producer on this show, and he is such a big advocate for equality in all realms of the world. And for that to kind of slip by seemed like a pretty big miss in 2025 for the producers, considering that one of the bigger storylines in the movie is the fact that the technical director is the first female technical director in Formula One. They make a pretty big deal about that. And then for them to like kind of drop the ball in that regard is a little disappointing. I will say the female characters were not particularly strongly written, and I think that's putting it mildly. I understand that F1 is predominantly a male sport in the year of our Lord Christian Horner 2025, but yeah, I'm just like, that was a little disappointing to see that. Brad Pitt is good. The dialogue is a little like cringy. But overall, watching F1 cars on the big screen doing F1 things was super, super entertaining. The final sequence at Abu Dhabi is freaking epic. There's a race at Monza that's pretty good as well. It's just like the thing, it's so impressive. Yes, this is it. This is what I'm talking about, Max Alive. It fails the Bechtel test. I thought it said Bechtel, but yeah, Bechtel test. It does fail it. Yes, there are. At one point, I'm not entirely sure how they class it. The two women are never on the screen at the same time talking to each other. At one point, the technical director is talking back to an analyst at the factory over headset, but they're never on the screen at the same time. So that's about as close as it comes. Like, so that was disappointing in 2025. But yeah, the final scene in Abu Dhabi is pretty epic. Brad Pitt's character is very likable and charismatic, and kind of like, if you guys have ever seen, what is it? So like Moneyball came out, and then Ahead of the Curve with Clint Eastwood came out, where he's like, the sound of the ball, you can hear the sound of the ball off the bat, and I know he won't hit a curveball, or something like that. Just something like totally hokey cokey, like old school baseball. That's Brad Pitt. And then the young guy, Damon Idris, is like the stats guy, blah, 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 like has to learn how to be part of a team, blah, 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 like that, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, Brad Pitt at like one time like feels the dirt, like, or feels the asphalt, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool, we'll go with that. Tire strategy is a really big thing. They build a car for combat, which is an interesting choice. They do mention dirty air. I don't think they ever mention downforce, but yeah, dirty air gets a mention. Tires get a lot of mention. That's like the main way they strategize in F1. It has the official Pirelli graphics and everything like that. But yeah, overall, I'd give it 5 rooms out of 5 for entertainment. As a kind of like in the racing, like the racing pyramid of good movies, I don't think it's gonna crack like the top 3 or top 5 of anyone's like favorite racing movies, but let me know in the comments below what your favorite racing movie is. And yes, my hopefully not too spoilery review of F1 the movie is over. And as is this live stream. It has been super fun. Been a little quiet, I will admit, but it's a Thursday night. We're all kind of waking up from a 2-week slumber after no F1. That's kind of the downside to having a break. The break is nice, but you kind of have to build the momentum back up in F1 Fantasy every couple of weeks. So like next week's stream for Silverstone, there'll probably be 100 people in the chat next Wednesday night. But we're all just kind of waking up from a little bit of a break. But it's been super fun. I'm glad I've been able to answer everyone's questions. Let me know what you think about that Max Verstappen final fix strategy if you're watching this on replay a little bit later. Like I said, we are very close to 3,300 videos, or 3,300 subscribers. Like, that would be great to get there before the Austrian Grand Prix. I got a couple of questions here. Audrey says, I think the Bechdel test makes sense when there's a reason to have it. If there's no need, why force it just for the sake of the test? It's just like, it needs to be like a representation thing. Like if they make a big deal about a woman being a technical director, then they need to like do better by her as a character for sure. William says, did you see an IMAX? I did not see an IMAX. That was not on offer, unfortunately. I mean, would the movie be better or make more sense if the pit stop girl and the aerodynamic had some more lines together? They could do something. That's all I'm saying. And the way they do the pit stop girl is kind of like, that's kind of like, she's like doe-eyed at the rookie driver kind of thing and like beating herself up. Like that wasn't great either, but yeah, that's just my opinion. But overall, like I said, five rooms out of 5 for the entertainment value of the movie. But yes, like I said, if you are enjoying what you're seeing in the F1 Fantasy Pole Position Paddock, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like this video. I'll be back one more time for the mega deadline stream and watch along for 3.5 hours on Saturday. So hopefully I will see you guys and girls there. But once again, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and I will talk to you next time.